Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Recruiters with No Limits. Always live and never scripted. I'm here with my sidekick and co-host, always, John Ruffini. Johnny, what's up,
Good
brother?
day, my friend. What's up? What's up? Richard, what's up?
What's
Tomorrow
up?
at 12 noon Eastern, what's up? My
March
Maryland Terrapins
Madness.
against your West Virginia Mountaineers to kick off this year's tournament.
I know.
May the best
Terps
team
and
win.
the
Sorry, I
Mountaineers.
had to just throw that up there. Go Terps.
And I have to cheer it out there to my alumni. Penn State, first time since like 2016, man. We're in it.
You deserve to be in it.
Hey, John, we got a special guest today, man. I'll tell you what, this guy here down below, man, you ready to introduce him, man? Here we go. It's Mr. Mike from Butler Street. Mike, what's up, buddy?
Doing well, guys. How are you doing?
Doing great.
Oh, hey, this is the best time of the year. You know that, Mike, right? I mean, later on, we'll get your picks, man. But March Madness, it brings out the best for everybody.
I got to pick Penn State or Maryland. I don't know. That's what
He's catching on quick. Look at that.
Right. Pressure decision.
I'm going to be texting Mike right now about doing the show. Penn State, brother. So, hey, Mike, let's just jump into him, man. Tell me about yourself, man. One thing I got to throw out there, 3 years in a row, SIA, top 100, man. I mean, that's the GOAT, man. That's 3 in a row. How did you do that, man?
Well, I think if you go back when I was CEO of Supplemental Healthcare and head of North American operations for Randstad, I'd go to these conferences and people used to say to me all the time, when I'd speak or I'd be on a panel, I'd tell them exactly what we were doing. And people come up to me afterwards and say, why do you tell them exactly what you're doing? Aren't you afraid? And my position was, out execute me. I mean, that was really it. So I think I had a lot of impact by just sharing best practice with people, being open, because you guys know. What did Vince Lombardi say? I'll give him my playbook, out execute me, right? Because it comes down to basic blocking and tackling. So what I always wanted to do was give back to the industry, help professionalize it. You got 20,000 staffing companies, high variability from company to company. And if we were doing something well, I thought the best thing to do is raise the whole industry up. That's what we're doing at Butler Street.
Man, so take us through the journey, Mike. You've had a great career, and no secret, you're competitive and you're driven as hell. From being a college athlete to being a leader in business. How did you migrate over to say, you know what, I'm gonna kind of flip sides on the staffing industry, and I'm gonna start a company that's going to help people do it the right way? How did that transformation take place?
Well, I think it goes back. I come from 7 kids. I'm the middle child. My oldest, yeah. My parents practiced the Irish Catholic rhythm method. I'm glad you guys knew what I was talking about with that. But yeah, that worked really well. But it was a very, very, let's just say, athletic family. My brother Bill was a high school teacher and head wrestling coach up in upstate New York. And he retired with 3 straight New York State championships, 54-0. He was my idol growing up, but I saw the life he had to live being a teacher and a coach. And I always wanted to coach. So if you think about that, as an athlete, I looked forward to, maybe coaching's for me, but the money wasn't there. So the thought was, how could I get the best of both? So I went into management very early in my career. And then when the opportunity arose, our company got acquired, private equity setting. Mary and I decided, you know what, now's the time. I actually left Randstad in 2004, wrote my book, and said I was going to start my company, but I got recruited away to be CEO. So it was tough.
You never know what's going to be dropped in front of you, right?
Right. Exactly.
So I love the coaching aspect, man. That's what it's all about. We all know that recruiting is coaching.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, you get a lot out of that. With us, when we walk into an organization, the first thing we look for is the organization, does it have an optional culture? Do you guys know what I mean by optional culture?
Help. Why don't you define it for the listeners?
Yeah. So if you think about an optional culture, you go in and you have, like we go in, when I was in supplemental healthcare, we had the supplemental way. This is the way we're going to go to business. This is the way we're going to, acquire new customers. This is the way we're going to acquire new talent. We mapped the processes. We trained people on it. We took the variability out. That was our goal. A lot of times we'll go into companies and we'll say, do you have an optional culture, where they'll say, well, you can come in and train us, but if our heavy hitters don't like it, we're not going to make them do it.
Mm.
Man.
And so you have a tremendous amount of variability in the organization. And one of the things we always say that, every single client talent interaction is a moment of truth where they're forming an opinion of you. So we want to be the best at that moment of truth. I think Nick Saban has, we use a line from Nick Saban where he says, don't worry about the scoreboard, just worry about doing your job at the highest level on every single play, and the scoreboard will take care of itself. He says, if you win your play and the guy next to you wins his play, we'll win, right? Essentially that. So we always say in staffing, what's it mean to win your play? When a recruiter does an outbound call, if they're unprepared, are they winning their play? I don't think so.
Right. There are a lot of parallels for sure. So
that's really what we try to do. We approach business with the mindset of a competitive athlete. At the end of the day, you think about staffing, you think about recruiting, even sales and staffing. It's not an individual sport. Now, I was a collegiate wrestler. You think, wow, that's, nobody can help you when you're out on the mat. In a national finals, nobody can help you. But the fact of the matter is, Joe Frazier has a great line where he says, champions are not made in the ring, they're merely recognized there. What you cheat on in the early twilight of the morning will show up in the ring under the bright light. So it's what you do every day, those habits that you develop, whether you're a recruiter or a salesperson, you are a culmination of your habits, good and bad. So that's one of the things we try to drive home. And when I talk about raising the industry up, creating good, positive habits.
And those good positive habits, if you get into a rhythm, again, that prepares you for, to your point, when that person on the other end of the phone answers, instead of being a deer in headlight, the recruiter actually knows what to do because they are prepared, because they've had that rhythm and they keep executing in a consistent fashion.
Exactly. One of the, we trademarked the term rejection immunity. And, I listened to some of your guys' podcasts before, and you think about a lot of recruiters want to just push out emails or even text messages. And it's like going into a black hole. You're not developing skills. Rejection immunity was what we call it. You get rejected. They don't want your job. They don't like that. You move on to the next person. And you are actually developing thicker skin. I like to use Dory on Finding Nemo. She forgot everything 8 seconds after it happened, right? So we've got to develop skin. And this is my big thing today in training, particularly with sales and recruiters. Where have all the skills gone?
True.
Well, most recruiters today, it's interesting. In my opinion, you can tell me if you agree or disagree, but there's a lot of, for lack of a better comparison, there's a lot of lazy recruiters out there that, technology should complement what a recruiter does. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't replace what a recruiter does, but it's so easy in this age to let technology take the front runner. And I always tell recruiters, you know what? As your initial outreach may indeed be electronic nowadays. It might be a text, it might be an email, but that all has to be in motion to getting the person on the phone, because at the end of the day, it's about building relationships, and you can't build relationships electronically.
Exactly.
True.
So we have a simple statement there. We say technology for transactions, people for relationships. At the end of the day, you take a step back, right? I mean, let's face it. I also am chairman and majority shareholder of a nurse staffing company, Spiral Workforce Solutions. My son runs it. They just finished number 5 on staffing industry's fastest growing list. And we hammer that home, guys, because you've got a nurse. I want to take the friction out, make that so easy for that nurse to do business with us. We've got online, you can go to jobs if she wants to sign up for a job. But if there's a problem, I want her to be able to talk to a recruiter who's going to respond immediately, because I want that recruiter to act as her agent and represent her to those hospitals. But if she wants to take any friction out and go straight to our online tool and sign up for a job and all that, God bless her. But if she has a problem with her pay, we got to be there for her.
Agreed.
Yeah, you got that right.
Yeah, it cannot be handled electronically and shouldn't be handled electronically, because they're more sensitive and more interpersonal, and that's how you build those relationships.
Exactly.
You've come from also a sales background, Mike, and your book, Become the Only Choice, a really good read, and tells a real nice story and gets some points across. Richard and I come from the same ilk in the sense that, we always looked at, recruiting. Recruiting is sales.
Right.
But why don't recruiters today look at it in that same fashion? What's changed today versus 5 years ago, even, in your opinion?
I'll make 2 points. John, it's a great question. I'll make 2 points about that. When I think about sales and recruiting, if I want to simplify it, it's really the transfer of enthusiasm from you to the other person. I mean, you think about it, sales. If I'm not enthusiastic about my product, if I'm enthusiastic about the fit that this job is for a particular profile, then how am I going to get them enthusiastic about it? All right. And I think if you take a step back today and just look at sales and or recruiting, you know, I was at a training, I think it was about 5 years ago. And you know, I always say I reserve the right to get smarter. And I got smarter that day. So I was talking. It was one of the rare things where we did a combo of sales and recruiting together, the training, because there's a lot of common ground between them. You know, we do our 4 cornerstones: active listening, effective questioning. They're all very, very similar. And in this particular company, the best salesperson in the room was a recruiter. So I went over to her after the break. And by the way, they paid more on the sales side than the recruiting side in this particular company. And I went over and we were at a break. And I said, Emily, I got to ask you, you're clearly the best salesperson in this room, bar none. I mean, you're at the top. Why aren't you on the sales side? And guys, I swear to God, this really impacted me. She said, I could never do sales. I said, why not? She said, recruiting is dangling the carrot. Sales is asking for it. I'm much more comfortable dangling the carrot.
Interesting.
Nice. I love it. And you know what, Mike, I love about what you said there, man, is about, you know, relationship building, but also exciting them. Me and John, we 100%, we are entertaining first. Why would they want to work with us instead of somebody else? It's that excitement every time you're on the phone. I love what you said there. I got to ask you, Mike, so you jump into a staffing firm. You never worked with them before. What are some of the biggest obstacles you're seeing with recruiters when you go in and you have to like revamp this and say, wow?
Well, it comes back to skills. And I'm not, to my recruiters out there, I love you, but you only got 2 speeds: talking and waiting to talk. Okay. we got to incorporate active listening in there some way. And one of the things that we truly do, you know, they have a job, they pitch the job. And what we want them to do is actually slow down so they go faster. One of the things we say in our training, both on sales and recruiting, you're defined in the eyes of the client and the candidate by the quality of questions you ask. So if you ask great open-ended questions, they're speaking. And I go back to the simple thing: 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should always be doing twice as much listening as speaking. I say, you know, when was the last time you learned something when you were speaking? You don't. You only regurgitate what you already know. And the most flattering thing you can do to another person is to listen, because in effect, what you're saying is your thoughts are more important than mine. And that's how trust is built. So the biggest challenge I have, particularly on the recruiting side, is, you know, salespeople used to show up and throw up, as we say, pitching. I'm seeing that now more on the recruiting side. And the sad part about it, guys, is most of it's being done electronically first. And they're just pitching jobs. I can tell you that I get pitched all the time. I'm a, you know, if you look at my LinkedIn profile, they want me to take vice president of sales jobs. They're just pitching, just spraying and praying and hoping that something will hit. So we want to go back to this concept, I say technology for transactions, people for relationships. We want recruiters to be able to build relationships through truly getting into the candidate's operating reality.
I was hoping you'd bring that up because I love that term. And reading your book was the first time I'd ever heard about it. Talk about that a bit, because I think that's very, very impactful.
So the best way I can describe operating reality is I'll take off my glasses and say, look at things through my eyes. And to me, as a recruiter, if you can convey the importance of the relationship by truly asking questions to understand what the needs and wants are of the candidate, you are going to move from a competitive relationship to at least a cooperative and perhaps a collaborative relationship over time. And that's the goal. When you're in a collaborative relationship, you're basically their agent. You're representing them, and you're going to have them at their next job, whatever they want to do. And the key point here, guys, is what we provide as an industry. It's a $177 billion industry. 2 words: flexible stability. the flexibility to work when I want to work, and the stability to have a paycheck if that's what I want. So if you think about a recruiter, what they need to do, they need to go with that mindset, look at the candidate, and how do they keep them working the way they want to work when they want to work.
It's all about them, and you've got to cater it to find out. And getting back to the sales aspect, if you are an active listener and if you tune in enough to what your candidate wants, then you end up having you don't have to sell anything because you're just providing a solution.
Exactly right.
100%. Think like a job seeker. I say that all the time. If you do that, man, the rest is history. So I got to ask you, Mike. So you get a recruiter, they're frustrated. They're having a bad week. How do you get them to overcome that? Because you know how recruiting is, it's up and down. How do you keep them positive all the time?
Well, the first thing that we do when we go into any training situation is we introduce this concept of 4 cornerstones: attitude, personal accountability, perseverance, and habit. And they're broken into 4. The top 2 are attitude and personal accountability. That's getting your mind right. The bottom 2 are perseverance and habit. And that's getting your actions right. Because somebody way smarter than me once said, actions speak louder than words. So we start with the attitude, and we're very, very firm with it. And I will say this to you guys: we're all CEOs of our own life. And every day we make or fail to make executive decisions that have immediate as well as far-reaching consequences. We choose the attitude we're going to take. And I go back to the concept of rejection immunity. I'll take it personal. I was 23 years old. I was getting hammered. My boss said, Mike, they love you. They just don't know it yet. Don't take this stuff personal, right? These are big things that impacted me in my life. Attitude is the gate to the mind. It's 100% in your control. And you've got, every time you get blown off the phone or something, you got to make that a successful failure. What did I learn? What adjustments do I need to make, right? And you got to look in the mirror. And the thing that I would tell you guys, there's a great quote by Eric Thomas. He says, don't be upset about the results you did not get from the work you did not do. Don't be upset. You didn't do the work. So what does that mean, doing the work? A salesperson, a recruiter, every single interaction, I'll go back to that concept of a moment of truth. They got to be prepped. They got to be prepared. They can't wing it.
Right.
You got to know who you're talking to. If you've got a job, you got to know the job. And then you got to have a series of questions that you ask to get the candidate to open up. If you're not prepared and you get blown off the phone, shame on you. Look in the mirror first. Look in the mirror, because you made that choice.
I agree. I always, it's interesting if you're, whether you have a split desk model or a full desk model as a recruiter. If you have a full desk model, which is what I grew up on, so you were bringing in jobs and you were bringing in candidates. And I always said, if anyone ever asks you a question about your candidate or asks you a question about your client and the job, you want to limit the number of times that you respond by saying, I don't know, I'll check. Like it's your job to be an extension of each. And you should know them very, very well. And the better recruiters do that. And to your point, they spend a lot of time learning and preparing so that they can provide that interaction, and they develop that confidence because of that.
Exactly. You guys know how I started in this industry?
Go for it. How?
I was in Dayton, Ohio. I was vice president of sales for Standard Register. If you guys ever heard of the company, the big thing I would tell you about Standard Register, did you ever see the movie Catch Me If You Can?
Oh, yeah.
Frank Abagnale.
Yep.
I signed Frank Abagnale at Standard Register. Standard Register invented the void pantograph on checks, so you couldn't copy checks. So he was our spokesperson. So I've had dinner with him. I've had dinner with Frank 14 times.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, Frank was one of those guys. Enough about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think about me? That was Frank's. It was like, there's Frank and there's the world. So, but he did have 168 IQ. All the stuff in the movie was true. But just a quick story before I tell you how I got to Randstad. I was vice president of sales and marketing there. I had 1.3 billion in revenue, 1,700 people under me. And I remember I'm sitting down with Frank at dinner one night. This was right after Titanic and Lost. And he says, hey, Mike, they're doing a movie on my life. And Leonardo DiCaprio is playing me, and Tom Hanks is playing the guy chasing me. I go home to my wife, and I said, pass me the bong. This guy's out of his mind. And lo and behold, he was right. He did it. He pulled it off. And it was a great, it was a great movie. And I can tell you stories way beyond that didn't make it into the movie, but they're a little dicey. But anyway, so we had the 9/11 incident. You start to reflect on your life. I've been in the same industry, document management, for 20 years. Get a call from a headhunter. Randstad's a big account of ours. We're doing all the document management for Randstad. So I'm walking down the hallway, sliding in because I'm afraid maybe I'll see one of my sales reps as I take an interview. And I walked into the corporate headquarters at Randstad. And I know, John, you spent some time there. And they had a big red digital sign. We put 48,000 people to work last week. I said, oh, that's kind of cool. All right. And I walk upstairs and meet with Jim Reese, the CEO. And he says to me, Mike, I'm sure document management's a noble profession. He said, but how many Christmas presents are under a Christmas tree depend on how well, for a lot of people, our people do their job. So he had me. He tucked on the heartstrings. We put people to work. It was something really big. So I interview. They fly me to Holland. They hire me as head of North American operations, chief marketing officer. And I could sense people are like, this dude doesn't know the staffing industry. He might be sharp, he might be this, but he doesn't know our business. Now, I will tell you, I think staffing suffers a little bit from what I call terminal uniqueness, in that they think, oh, our business is so different. We deal with the ultimate variable, people. Well, I guarantee you GE's hiring more people than most staffing companies out there. So they're dealing with the same variable, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. So I say to sit down with the CEO and I said, I got to do something here. I got to run a desk. And so I did. I was the first undercover boss. I ran a desk undercover for 90 days. Nobody knew who I was.
Love
I
it.
had to learn. And guys, I made every mistake humanly possible. I'll tell you a quick story. I went into a big law firm downtown Atlanta, and it gave me an order for, and this is a full desk, okay? Randstad the old way. And I get an order for a kitchen chef. I work on that order for 2 days. I finally get somebody, kitchen chef for a law firm, chef for a law firm. I go back to the guy. I said, got your guy. He's perfect. I interviewed him and everything. He goes, we filled that yesterday. I said, you gave me the order. You gave me the order. He goes, you haven't been in this business very long, have you, son? I was mortified. But what I did was, I realized at that point, now I'm a Six Sigma guy, and staffing has two core processes: client acquisition, retention, talent acquisition, retention. There's no product development process per se. There's no manufacturing process and all that. That's your whole supply chain issue there. So I mapped the process. I'm a Six Sigma guy. So I mapped the processes, and I said, we got to take variability out of these processes. And so when I got there, our sales were down, I think 23%. Within 18 months, we're up 22. And it was a big win for us. Then I ended up getting recruited away to be CEO of Supplemental Healthcare, and had a great run there. So it's been a very, very rewarding business for me. I can tell you that.
Man, Mike, you're like the Lombardi, man, of staffing now. The more I get to know you, man, you're the old school with some energy, man. I love it. But I got to say one thing: the online learning program, Mike. Let's deep dive into this a little bit. I want to see about what's going on with this online learning program. It's amazing for these recruiters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you think about what happens today, I'll give you some stats. I just coming out of SIA Executive Forum last week. You guys, Barry put up on the board. There are 244 staffing companies over 100 million. There are 765 from 25 million to 100 million. So that's about 1,000. So there's 19,000 under 25 million. And here's the sad part: there's 10,000 under $1 million. And I think there's 6,000 from 1 million to 5 million. So they can't afford a high end, people coming in, take people out for 3 days, learning process. So what we did was we looked at the segmentation strategy. And again, I come back to this. We want to lift the industry up. What drives me nuts, guys, and I'll just become clean with it, is when a staffing salesperson, I'll use salesperson because I've been tough on recruiters today. I'll jump on them a little bit. A staffing salesperson dials the phone and says, hey, just checking in, see if you got any needs.
Oh, God.
Oh, no.
Well, guys, I'm telling you.
It still happens, but it blows me away.
Yeah.
Happens every day, every second.
Every day. So there's no value statement. There's no creating value. They're not winning their play. The moment of truth is not a good one. So one of the things we did was we took all of our leader-led, instructor-led training and put it in an interactive module where you learn at your own pace. Where I am is where I learn. If I want to learn 11 o'clock at Starbucks at night, if I want to go over a module again and again, I can do that. And you get the same qualities. It's $599. If you're a company of 5, You can buy 1 leadership, 1 sales, 2 recruiting, and 1 account management. And they're all programs tied with the same language, the same nomenclature. So you're building a common language in your organization. So there's an office of 5. We have something for everybody there. And it's all interactive and tied together. So you raise the quality of that particular organization. And we teach, active listening, effective questioning. On the recruiting side, we teach a process called PLACED: people, location, attainment, challenge, earnings, and dependability. And I'll give you a great example. Let's take a light industrial recruiter. Light industrial. We'll talk about, somebody will say, I want to work second shift for the shift differential. One of the key questions a light industrial recruiter should ask right there is, have you ever worked second or third shift before? No. If they haven't, guys, trust me, that person, that's a life-changing event, working second. My wife's a nurse. She worked 11 to 7. It's a bitch. So that person's going to take that job, work that job for 3 or 4 days, and they're going to walk off. And that is going to create, we have bill rate, but effective bill rate is going to go up, because now it's like a hamster on a flywheel. Now you got to start somebody new. They got to learn the process, and that costs companies money. Mm-hmm. So the quality of this, I go back to the quality of questions you ask as a recruiter. It's a game changer. It truly is. So we address all of that in our learning, but every single learning starts with the psychological aspect of the job, whether it's leadership, account management, sales, or recruiting. Attitude, personal accountability, perseverance, and habit. You get those things in place, everything else will fall into place as well.
How difficult is it for you, Mike? And I know that Butler Street has many clients where you're doing much more than just training. I mean, you are in more of a consultative role.
Right.
But the challenge that I've seen, and you can echo or disagree, when you train, you're teaching, but you don't always have the ability to say, all right, but is it really going to get done and managed when I'm gone? So, hey, you're going to take this information, but is the leadership in that organization going to support it? And do they even know what that information is so they can support it? That follow-up and that reinforcement is so key, and something that as a trainer, you don't always have the direct line of sight into. How do you deal with that?
So you are a hell of an interviewer, because that's a great question. So that's why I asked the question up front. Do you have an optional culture? Are you going to commit to this? You will, guys, our process is so structured. If we go in and the VP of sales or VP of recruiting isn't involved in the decision process, we disengage. Because if it's not important to them, we're not going to get the stickiness.
I like that.
Our process is diagnose, develop, perfect. So the consultant, we want to go in and see what they're doing well today, and we want to make sure we don't throw the baby out the bathwater, so to speak. So take the best of what they've got, take the best of what we got, tailor it, and then they go, here's how we get the stickiness. They go through the e-learning. Now, sometimes we'll do it virtual over 9 weeks. They do an e-learning module. Then we come in and do the virtual. We put them in role practice. Notice I don't call it role playing, because we ain't playing. We want to drive a concept of practice into. When I was a kid growing up in sales, we practiced every day. Right now, you got a better shot at seeing Jesus. Nobody practices it.
No. You're right. Wing it.
Yeah. So even in our own company, guys, you can ask anybody about us. 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock Thursday afternoons. I send them a note and say, objection handling, effective question, and we practice. We put them on the spot every week, because I go back to this concept of moment of truth. They got to be able to represent our brand the way we want it represented. But back to what you were saying, John. So we start with the e-learning. That's dose 1. First off, most of them read my book. That's dose 1. E-learning is dose 2. And then we put them through either virtual or 2-day training. And then we stay with them every other week for 1 hour for 12 weeks.
Wow.
And make sure that the training is sticking. Because here's the thing I will tell you guys. When we bring on a client, we're laying our brand down right next to theirs. And this is a key point. The last thing I want in the marketplace is somebody say, well, Butler Street, we went through the training. They weren't that good. So we're selective about who we take.
Nice.
Because if they got an optional culture, I go back to, I've had the great fortune of being on 3 national championship teams in college. And I can tell you, there was no optional culture there. If you didn't do the work, you didn't start. He didn't care if you were an All-American. It was, you had to do what the team required you to do. And we bring that same mindset, this mindset of a competitive athlete, into our training, into our clients. And that's how we win. Our clients grow 3.8. I rounded off to 4 times their respective markets, because they execute. That's the key.
Great stuff.
I tell you, it is amazing. Real quick before we head out of here, we got to talk about Mike's book. Mike, throw your book up, everybody. Let's see what it's about, man.
Oh, so we're talking about Become the Only Choice. And I wrote this book, we revised it in 2018, wrote the original version in 2005. And the thing I would tell you about the book is, you guys know, you read sales books and they are, very processed and dry. What I did was I wrote a book and I instilled characters. Frank and Al are former college teammates. One is highly successful and the younger of the two is really struggling, and he's blaming everybody but himself. Our prices are too high. I'm not getting the support. And the dude Al just slaps him around and basically says, if you feel unhappy with your results, you have only to look in the mirror to stare the culprit straight in the eye. So he hammers him, gets him set up with this mentor. And the thing I would tell you about it, I mean, the story flows where it starts with him crying in his beer in a bar in Manhattan, and it ends pretty nice for him. But in between, every single story that you read in the book actually happened. I'll give you one example. I was 23 years old. The general manager of Northeast asked me to drive him to a big Northeastern conference. That meant he was the number one guy in the Northeast. And this was a company called Wallace Computer Services right out of college. So I got to spend I was telling my wife, I'm so excited about this. And I show up 6 minutes late to pick him up. So, now he's an ex-Vietnam vet.
Oh, gosh.
Purple Heart guy. I walk in the car, I say, Al, listen, I'm really sorry. I got stuck in traffic. He looks at me, guys. He goes, thank God I wasn't waiting for oxygen. I'd be dead right now.
Ooh.
I'm telling you, my eyes welled up, my knees were buckling. I was sitting in the car, but it was a tremendous learning experience for me because I'm accountable for that. I can't make an excuse. I blew that. I got to look in the mirror first and say, that isn't happening. So it's funny because you come to Butler Street now, every meeting starts on time and ends on time, because that still has an impact on my life.
Hey, when if you don't fail, you can't learn. And as long as you grow from it and you learn, and clearly years later, that's still something that stays with you. That's how people evolve. So that's a great story.
Now, we have a saying at Butler Street: good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. So,
man, I love these taglines, man. These are historical ones, Johnny. I told you, this is like the Lombardi, man. I'm going to write all this stuff down. Hey, Mike, so do I get a book, man? I haven't read it yet, man. You want to send me one, brother? Autograph?
Yeah, I'll send you a book. You email me the address. I'll have one sent out to you.
Brother, I love you, man. And I definitely will do it. We'll do another review on it, John. Come on another show and check it out, man, because I can't wait to hear these stories, man.
It's a good read. It really is.
So, hey, Johnny, any final thoughts, brother?
There's, thanks, Mike, for taking some time out.
My pleasure.
We've talked many times in person and on the phone, and I could talk to you forever because I respect you highly and what you bring to the table and your passion. The things that resonate with me, Richard, the idea of having an optional culture, and you can't have an optional culture and still expect to succeed. I love that concept. Everybody's got to buy in. I also love when you talk about sales being the transfer of enthusiasm. It's a great way to look at it, because if you as a recruiter or a salesperson are not passionate and enthusiastic about what you're bringing to the table, how can you expect anybody else to be? And then finally, the idea of developing rejection immunity. You can't take things personally. You've just got to push through the adversity and know and believe in yourself that you'll make it happen. So those are three big takeaways that I'll walk away with after this.
Exactly. I mean, this is good stuff. Mike, the thing I'm going to take away is one word he kept saying over and over again: accountability. Keep yourself humble and accountable. Don't blame anybody else. You got it yourself. Blame yourself and get out there and do it, man. That's all it is. It's hard work. Mike, I love how you did the concept. I got to say this, man, because I'm a football coach. That coaching is so into this industry, man. Coaching and recruiting are so, like sports coaching is so tight together. And I love it, man. Yes. You bring the energy, my man. I'll tell you what, I can't wait to meet you next time. We're going to have a drink, man. Maybe at Staffing World, brother. Because, dude, you're right on, man. You're reading my book, man.
Look forward to it, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. And
hold on, before we go, Mike, we got to ask you one question.
Wow.
Okay, who's going to win the national championship, man? You got to throw a team out there.
Well, dude, you're a Penn State guy. I would think when you ask me who's winning the national championship, I would tell you must be talking about wrestling because it's Penn State. So there it is. There it is. That's all I talk about.
Wow.
There you
Dude,
go.
I don't have to say anymore. We only do no March Madness. It's about Penn State man wrestling, man. You know
I
that,
am
man.
so outnumbered here. Go Terps. Mike, how do people get in touch with you in Butler Street if they want to?
Well, first thing I'd like you guys to do is go to Butler Street Online. We just revamped our entire website for the e-learning component. There's a contact form there, www.butlerstreetonline.com, or you can go to butlerstreet.com. There's a contact form. Reach out to us, and we will respond to you that same day. So appreciate that.
Good deal. Thank you.
Sounds good. Well, hey, Mike, once again, thank you so much. Johnny, I'll see you next week. And everybody out there, we'll see you next week on another great episode. Take care, guys.
You got it.
Thanks,
Take
guys.
care.